Thought by some critics to be the first true horror movie, Robert Wiener's The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is also one of the first German expressionist films, defined by its distinct visual style. In it, the mad Dr. Caligari hypnotizes the sleepwalking Caesar into carrying out his nefarious deeds. By having an old man of power send out a young, helpless man to do his killing, Caligari is meant to be a critique of wartime Germany. Also of note is the film's twist ending, another first of its kind which I won't spoil here. Caligari's influence can be seen in everything from Universal's early horror pictures to the works of Tim Burton, even a Martin Scorsese film. For all of these qualities, I'm naming it the best horror movie of 1920. But before we're done, I'd like to give an honorable mention to Paul Wegener's and Carl Buse's The Golem. Directed by Swedish filmmaker Victor Sjöström, The Phantom Carriage follows a destitute man, played by Sjöström himself, who, upon dying, is forced to reflect on his past mistakes by a ghostly Grim Reaper. Based on the novel Thy Soul Shall Bear Witness by author Selma Lagerlöf, the film functions as both a ghost story and a morality tale, dealing with issues of poverty, alcoholism, and domestic turmoil. Although primitive by today's standards, The Phantom Carriage is also noted for its special effects, painstakingly accomplished in camera through double exposures. Its nonlinear narrative structure, told through flashbacks and flash-forwards, can be seen in the likes of more modern films such as Pulp Fiction, and its imagery of an alcoholic father breaking down a door with an axe is thought to have influenced Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of The Shining. But most importantly, The Phantom Carriage was a major inspiration for fellow Swedish filmmaker Ingmar Bergman, who made a television play on its making and cast Sjöström in one of his films. For all of that, The Phantom Carriage is the best horror movie of 1921, with an honorable mention going to Fritz Lang's similarly themed Destiny. Directed by Danish filmmaker Benjamin Christensen, Haxton is a docudrama based around 15th century beliefs on witchcraft. Having studied the subject for 2 years, Christensen drew parallels between the persecution of witches in the Middle Ages and the institutionalization of hysterical women in the then present day. Those of you following along may recognize one of those women as Astrid Holm from The Phantom Carriage, while the role of the devil is enthusiastically played by Christensen himself. To bring his 15th century demons to life, Christensen employed an assortment of techniques, including stop-motion animation, reverse motion photography, and multiple exposures. Due to its overt nudity, shocking scenes of torture, and anti-religious overtones, Haxton was severely edited in many countries. A recut 1968 version, titled Witchcraft Through the Ages, features a voiceover narration by writer William S. Burroughs. Meanwhile, Haxton has gone on to inspire depictions of cinematic witches for decades, including those found in the Blair Witch Project and Robert Eggers' The Witch, and Christensen's emotion-ridden close-ups can be seen echoed in those of Carl Theodor Dreyer's The Passion of Joan of Arc. For all of that, Haxton is the best horror movie of 1922, but I'd like to give a very esteemed honorable mention to F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu. Directed by Wallace Worsley, The Hunchback of Notre Dame is best remembered as one of actor Lon Chaney's crowning achievements. Based on the novel by Victor Hugo, the film tells of the evil Jihan, who, after being smitten by the lovely Esmeralda, sends out the hunchback Quasimodo to capture her, sparking a feud between the Paris underworld and its aristocracy. Known as the Man of 1,000 Faces, Chaney was famous for creating his own makeup. Inspired by early illustrations of Quasimodo, Chaney's hunchback makeup took him 3 hours to apply and included a 20-pound plaster hump. Also worth mentioning are the large-scale sets replicating 15th century Paris, which took 6 months to construct, as well as the 3,000 extras required to populate them. Fortunately, all this effort paid off, as The Hunchback of Notre Dame remains Universal's most successful silent film, leading to multiple remakes and reimaginings. For that effort, I'm naming it the best horror movie of 1923. Robert Wiener's The Hands of Orlock is based on the novel of the same name by French author Maurice Renard. After losing his hands in a tragic train accident, concert pianist Paul Orlock discovers his transplanted limbs previously belonged to a murderer, and that they just might have a mind of their own. Fans of this series may recognize Orlock as Conrad Veidt from Wiener's previous film, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. However, in contrast with Caligari, The Hands of Orlok features a much more subdued, expressionistic style. Orlok's story of evil appendages can be seen as a metaphor for fears of amputation, all too common in the wake of World War I. Although it's been remade and reinterpreted several times over the years, even veering into the realm of comedy, for being the original, The Hands of Orlok is the best horror movie of 1924. 1925's The Phantom of the Opera was directed by Rupert Julian and based on the classic novel by Gaston Leroux. In it, a mysterious shadowy figure threatens the management of the Paris Opera House into promoting understudy Christine Daae to a starring role, all in an attempt to win her love. Those of you following along might not recognize actor Lon Chaney from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Inspired by illustrations by André Castain, the actor glued his ears back, stuffed his cheeks with cotton, and used wires and prongs to painfully distort his nose and mouth. Kept secret in all promotional material, it said the Phantom's face reveal was so shocking that it caused audience members to faint in their seats. With the interior of the Paris Opera House, the Phantom of the Opera also gave us the longest standing film set, having been used in numerous productions before being put into storage in 2014. As originally released, Phantom included 17 minutes of color sequences, only a few of which exist today. Surviving segments utilize both the red-green two-strip Technicolor process as well as the Handschigel dye technique. In 1929, a partially refilmed sound version was released, only to later be lost. Several remakes and reinterpretations have come and gone over the decades, but for standing the test of time, The Phantom of the Opera is the best horror movie of 1925, with an honorable mention going to The Lost World. One of German director F.W. Murnau's masterpieces, Faust is based on the stage play by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, itself inspired by the traditional German folktale. In it, the devil-like Mephisto wagers he can take the soul of the alchemist Faust within 24 hours, using the pleasures of youth, lust, and love to achieve his goal. At the time, Faust was the most expensive production made by famous German film studio, UFA. Among the expenses were the film's intricate special effects, many of which took several days to shoot. One such effect, depicting Faust and Mephisto's flight to Italy, used a motorized camera on a rail running along a miniature set 35 meters in length. With Faust, Murnau took influence from illustrated editions of Goethe's play, as well as numerous works of fine art, some of which can be seen in the film. Likewise, the shot of a giant Mephisto looming over the village below is thought to have inspired the Night on Bald Mountain sequence in Walt Disney's Fantasia. As theorized by German film critic Siegfried Krakauer, Faust reflected Germany's contemporary socio-political climate. Suffering hardships, Faust turns to a corrupt power that promises to fulfill his every desire, mirroring Germany's willingness to accept authoritarian control, later realized with the rise of the Nazi Party. Despite being a commercial failure, Faust remains one of the greatest silent films of all time, easily making it the best horror movie of 1926. But before we're done, I'd like to give an honorable mention to Tenosuke Kinugasa's A Page of Madness. Alfred Hitchcock's The Lodger is based on the novel of the same name by English writer Marie Baylock Lowndes, itself inspired by the 1888 Jack the Ripper murders. In it, a series of murders coincide with the appearance of a mysterious lodger, who falls under the suspicion of his new landlords when he takes an interest in their young daughter. Although Hitchcock had previously made 2 films in Germany, due to their troubled productions, he considered The Lodger to be his first true film. During his time in Germany, Hitchcock was able to observe the filming of F.W. Murnau's The Last Laugh, which helped to inspire the expressionistic style of The Lodger. One technically impressive shot, in which the ceiling becomes transparent, was achieved by placing the camera under a thick sheet of glass. The Lodger also depicts many traits later found in Hitchcock's filmography. The killer's blonde victims reveal the director's own obsession with the hair color shared by many of his later leading ladies. And spoiler warning, as in the novel, Hitchcock would have preferred to have left the guilt of the lodger ambiguous. However, the reputation of matinee idol Ivor Novello prevented him from being depicted as a villain, consequently birthing another Hitchcock trope, that of the wrong man on the run. And lastly, The Lodger is the first Hitchcock film to feature a cameo by the director himself, a gag he would continue in many of his films. Although it's been remade multiple times for giving us our first thrills from the master of suspense, The Lodger is the best horror movie of 1927. But I'd like to give honorable mentions to Todd Browning's The Unknown and Paul Lenny's The Cat and the Canary. Directed by Paul Lenny, The Man Who Laughs is based on the novel by Victor Hugo. When it's revealed the disfigured clown Gwynplaine is the lost heir of a deceased lord, he's separated from the blind Dia, who loves him for who he is, and forced to marry the Duchess Josiana, who fetishizes him for his fortune and deformity. Like the Hunchback of Notre Dame before it, Universal originally intended The Man Who Laughs to be another Victor Hugo vehicle for star Lon Chaney. However, due to rights issues, Universal instead moved forward with adapting the Phantom of the Opera. By the time the studio secured the rights, Chaney had signed an exclusive contract with MGM. In his place, German actor Conrad Veidt was cast as both Gwynplaine and his father, Lord Clancharlie. Viewers may recognize Veidt from my previous videos on the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and the Hands of Orlok. Alongside Veidt are returning Hunchback and Phantom cast members Mary Philbin, Brandon Hurst, and Cesare Gravina. Even the statues of Notre Dame make an appearance in King James' bedroom. Chaney's absence also provided an opportunity for Universal's newly appointed head of makeup, Jack Pierce. To give Veidt a rictus grin, Pierce equipped him with oversized dentures and used small hooks to painfully pull back his lips, similar to Chaney's approach in Phantom. Famously, a still photo of Pierce's makeup inspired Bill Finger, Bob Kane, and Jerry Robinson in creating the Batman villain, the Joker. A few reinterpretations of Hugo's novel have come and gone over the years, yet The Man Who Laughs' true legacy lies in the work of Jack Pierce and art director Charles D. Hall, who defined the look of Universal's horror output throughout the 1930s and 40s. For that, and much more, The Man Who Laughs is the best horror movie of 1928, with honorable mentions going to The Fall of the House of Usher and Paul Lenny's other 1928 horror film, The Last Warning. Directed by Benjamin Christensen, Seven Footprints to Satan is very loosely based on the novel of the same name by Abraham Merritt. After being abducted, a young couple find themselves in a mysterious mansion full of peculiar characters and hidden passageways run by a satanic cult. Written by Christensen himself under the pseudonym Richard B., Seven Footprints to Satan ignores much of Merritt's novel in favor of being a send-up of old dark house movies, namely The Cat and the Canary. In fact, Christensen intentionally cast actor Creighton Hale based on his appearance in that film. The varied and extensive makeups for the picture's zany cast of characters were created by Perce Westmore of the famous House of Westmore. Along with his twin brother Ern, Perce was the head of First National Pictures' makeup department. The mansion's resident gorilla was played by Filipino performer and makeup artist Charlie Gamora. Due to his small stature and effects knowledge, Gamora would become known for playing primates in countless films, earning the nickname the King of the Gorilla Men. Despite being a box office flop, I'm naming Seven Footprints to Satan the best horror movie of 1929. If you like this video, please consider donating to my Patreon campaign. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe, and be sure to check out my other videos.